Well, it's day 2 working on the Audi RS5 that I picked up from a crashed vehicle auction where the front end got smashed up pretty good. I wouldn't call it hard, but it definitely got whacked. So the plan with today is to get the radiator off and the radiator support bar off, which is pretty mangled right up in here. I've already kind of started working on the radiator. I've gotten these quick disconnect clips. There's one there, there's one below it off, where just the metal tab slips up. I took a flathead screwdriver and kind of just easily tapped it backwards. And then it looks like there's 2 oil lines that were connected. I don't know if they're transmission or engine oil coolers. I kind of think that might be the engine oil cooler, but it could be transmission cooler. Anyways, a little bit of oil runs through there. I'm gonna be figuring out how to take the rest of the radiator off so we can lift it out. I think I gotta do something in here to get enough room to get it up. But that's gonna be the plan. Radiator support off, and we'll start ordering parts. Hopefully there's no more damage behind the radiator. It did get pushed into the engine, but I think we're good, but we'll find out soon. So what's kind of interesting about this is this bar down here, this plastic bar, is connected to the radiator mount. But it's gotta come up, and in order to get this up, this cooler has to come off. But I tried that yesterday, and because there's this black bar running on top of the cooler, this just won't fold down. So I really hope I don't have to take that cooler off and deal with the oil and all that that's inside of it. So I'm gonna try to finagle it somehow to get this through here by tilting that down a little bit. Let's see if it happens.
As I spent more and more time trying to figure out how to get just the radiator out while leaving the oil cooler, it became apparent that I don't think Audi even ever engineered the car to have the radiator removed without taking off the entire front end. This kind of continued as a theme with the car where one item led to another that had to be removed. The whole thing became complicated, but also fun.
I was having trouble reaching one of the bolts to get the radiator off, so I got a socket to a long extension to a short extension to a 1/4-inch drive, screwdriver style, but it worked. I'm gonna remove this bracket right here to free up this air conditioning line. Pop this off, and that will now give me enough room to hopefully move that forward. My plan is, since I can't get that to come out anymore, hopefully it'll come out on an angle and get it out. Don't know if this is gonna work, but I'm gonna take this strap to kind of take some weight off of this cooler, because if you see, it's kind of on a slant. And I kind of think this cooler might actually have a crack in it.
I thought the oil cooler may have a crack in it because I left it sitting on a piece of cardboard overnight, and the next morning it was the cardboard was damp underneath it, but I think it was just condensation, which is great news. And then the electrical plugs for the radiator fans were an absolute nightmare to get off because I didn't know what I was doing.
These things are so stuck. Got it. I'll show you once I get it off the little hang up. Well, that was easy once I knew what to do.
Continuing with the theme of the radiator being hard to get out, I spent another hour or so trying to figure out how to work it out without having to take off the oil cooler. I finally succeed, but now you'll see that everything's been disconnected from the radiator besides one more electrical connector for the fan. It was much easier now that I had some working space to get that fan unplugged. And then you'll see 2 feet that are coming off the radiator. I didn't realize at the time those were in working condition, but I set the radiator down face first and I snapped those, and those had to be replaced.
So looking for additional damage, really all that I see is it looks like this sensor got bent back. I think it's still making contact, but I'm hoping I can just pull this piece off and just get the new sensor with that piece. But overall, it actually looks pretty good. Pulley's not pushed in, the belt looks fine. The harness up there looks okay. It's just kind of this radiator frame in that section and that guy. Keep tearing it down, get that radiator support off next. I'm hoping it just threads out. Doesn't look like it's threading out. Nothing's easy, is it? This might all be one piece, and that's secured from the inside. And that would be a bummer.
The reason why I was so convinced that this piece was molded with the aluminum was that everything I did with either needle nose pliers, a screwdriver, vice grips, I could not get the sensor to budge. But then you'll see later what happens.
So the plan is to now take the radiator support off. I hope it comes out faster and easier than those radiator fan clips did.
I spent time working on this car, I just became more and more impressed with the engineering that goes into all cars. The amount of custom molded pieces that are needed, bolts that integrate with plastic and metal. It's truly an engineering masterpiece when you think of cars and how all the parts work together. But in doing so, it also means there's a lot of pieces to take off that you couldn't necessarily see and that you had to remove auxiliary pieces to get to the main bolts that you needed to. So it became time consuming and tedious, but then also my concern was saving everything so that it could all go back together.
Slowly but surely making progress. Had to disconnect this oil line off this bracket. And then I had to disconnect 2 bolts on here and just kind of tilt that motor back so that I could undo the bolt that's on the other side of like this breather apparatus. And now it looks like there's a 13 millimeter bolt holding on the bottom side. And then I think once that bolt's off, this whole side is done. So I'm gonna get the bottom one and hopefully this side is freed up. Okay, it does look like this side is now freed up. We'll do the same thing on the other side. Okay, let's see what else. Okay, it looks like next I'm gonna have to undo the hood latch, but the bolts are on the back side, but now I have a little bit of room, I can pull it away. And then I think there's just some cable, maybe zip ties and things I gotta cut from over here.
Working on the radiator support more gave me an appreciation for just how strong it is and how much damage and force it took in the accident to protect pretty much everything else behind it. For a piece of plastic and metal to take the amount of force that it did and to bend but not break and to keep everything else safe, I was really impressed. And for how inexpensive the part was, definitely did its job.
It is out. Now, I just gotta figure out that aluminum issue, and then we can start ordering parts. That actually was harder than I thought it was gonna be. I think there's a few more things broken that I wasn't expecting, like the latch for the hood. This looks broken right here. I gotta look at it closer. Some other little things. But we're moving on. I decided, since I have momentum right now, I'm gonna try to take this piece off, just so it's off and I can kind of look at it better. I just have a feeling I'm gonna have to get a whole new one of those, and it looks kind of expensive. So I don't have the proper tool to take off the clamp, like this hose clamp, but there's one on each side, and then the Torx bits. I'm gonna do that next. And that water you hear running, that's not coolant. I put hose water in the reservoir. So I'm trying to figure out if this cooler down on the ground has a leak or not in it. I thought maybe since that was the lowest point, I would tell. So this is just water. It's not coolant draining on the ground. And I would not use hose water if this was like actual application, use distilled. But for this, I just wanted to test. So that's what that is. Well, for some reason it's still on there pretty tight. I don't think I missed a bolt. Alright, got it loose. Now I just gotta get the hose off of it, which I don't think will be easy. Given the age of the car and the 50,000 miles, I actually thought this would be more, the rubber would be more stuck on the metal. But it actually didn't come off, it wasn't that bad. Trying to get this out, but there's another hose kind of teed off in the middle. I'm trying to undo with not a lot of working room without breaking these connectors that are pretty brittle and fragile. So just trying to work the hose back and forth to give myself enough play to get it off. Got it. Now we see if we can get it out of there or not. Good news, I was actually able to pop out that sensor that was stuck here in the aluminum housing. I just used the socket that was a little bit bigger than the end of it and used a hammer and just knocked it straight out. So it looks like it just presses in using some O-rings. I'm hoping I can just buy this and not need to replace this entire piece. That's gonna wrap it up for this video. I'm actually feeling a lot better today than I was at the end of yesterday, especially because I was able to get that sensor, temperature gauge, whatever it might be, out of that aluminum housing. I feel much better about that. The one wild card is that lower heat exchanger radiator. I don't know if it's got a leak on the coolant side. I gotta dig into it a little bit more. That's the one piece where I don't know if it's broken or not. But for the rest of the day, I'm just gonna check the air filters, make sure they're not too dirty, and then I'm gonna check the continuity on the radiator fans just to make sure that those are good before I reassemble anything and while I'm ordering parts. So I'm gonna show you that, and then that'll be for the video today, and then we're gonna start reassembly once parts are ordered.